Hey guys, it's Parzival, and I am back with a story time. Now, normally every week I put up a sketchbook, but I actually did not have time to film this week. I do have a sketchbook finished to show you guys, but it'll have to wait until next week when I actually have time to film it. This is mostly because I've been recovering from holiday work, and that is what I would like to share with you today. So, this season I worked at a haunted house. And if you happen to be watching me because you followed me from said haunted house, I would like to say hello. But today I will be talking about some experiences at the haunted house. I know it's a little bit late for Halloween, but we worked until Halloween, so it's inevitably going to be a little bit late unless I talked about it early. But yeah. And in case people are wondering about the art, this is my first time filming on my new Mobile Studio Pro. It's not that new, it's a few months old, I'm just still getting used to it. And I am coloring in a collaboration with Rendoodles, who is also on YouTube. I will link him down below. He did the line art, and I am coloring it, and these are of my two characters, Esme and Sandoval. Esme is on the left and Sandoval is on the right. And I really just want to plug Ren because he's got some really cool art. I love his style and his line work. It's really awesome. But I'm not actually super familiar with how OBS will film on this mobile studio because I use Creative Cloud, and I use Coolers 2.5 for my color wheel because I'm very picky about my color wheels. But it's just something that I'm still getting used to, so sorry for any of my mouse jumping around or anything. It is a screen tablet, so sometimes that happens. I apologize. Still getting recording stuff done. But yeah, if you want to just mute me and look at the art, that's totally fine. I'm not really sure how long this is going to last, so I will estimate and adjust the video to however long that will be. But yeah, if you want to just mute me and just look at me coloring, that's totally fine. If you want to hear story time, then you can stick around for that. So, as I said earlier, I worked at a haunted house this Halloween for work, which was great. It's been the first time that I was back in a theater family of sorts, and I made a bunch of new friends, and I'm definitely going to try and go back next year for the season. But with haunted houses, there's always a little bit of a, let's say, catch. I'm reading off of notes. I don't really have a script, so I apologize if I say or a lot, or I pause. I'm not really used to doing storytime videos, so we'll see how this goes. Now, in haunted houses, there's a few types of customers. You have the classic people who are terrified as crap, and they crunch into themselves when they get scared, and those are the type that we really like, because we can get super close to them, and we don't have to worry about our own safety. But today, I'm not going to be talking about those people. I'm not going to be talking about the people that we enjoy having in the haunted house. No, I'm going to be talking about the people who we don't necessarily like in a haunted house. I'm going to start with some of the lesser ones. I've got 3, maybe 4 stories. I'm going to start with the shorter ones, with the weird people. So, when you're in a haunted house, sometimes you're going to be able to get the ability to move around, but I generally wasn't in a position to do that. I worked, for context, I worked in one of 2 positions. I was either a cultist who guided people from the beginning towards the next entrance so they wouldn't go through an extra door, or I was behind a moving wall. Now, this gave me a little bit of an advantage because I didn't have any risk of, actually being assaulted as much as the others did. and, you know, when you're working in a haunted house, sometimes if people are super punchy when they get scared, then they're going to try and punch you in the face as a instinctive reaction. If you are one of these people, try not to do that. That is dangerous. Please do not touch actors in haunted houses. But the first story I have is just kind of a weird story. And I heard some of this secondhand from the other actors because I didn't really move around much in my position. I really couldn't afford to. But I had, in the second or third week of the season, this couple come around, and I did my thing. I was part of this spike wall, so they went into the room, there was no exit, and the wall would close in on them and slam in their faces, and then pull back to reveal the exit. Which was fine, but then when the wall pulled back, one of the ladies, I think it was a lady and a guy, and the two of them waited in the next room, knocked on the door, or the wall rather, the moving wall, and offered it popcorn, which was weird. Now, we do sell popcorn and, you know, midway treats, carnival sort of snacks, because we are at a fairgrounds, but that was just kind of weird. I didn't think much of it until after I got out, and it turns out that these people had been going around the haunted house, probably stoned from, apparently the werewolves could smell marijuana on them, which is, I couldn't smell that through the wall, but if you're stoned, whatever, that's fine. But they had been offering popcorn to all of the actors. Some of them took them, some of it didn't. And also cuddles to the werewolves. And it was really strange. I didn't really know how to react to that, but mostly it was strange because they didn't see me. They just saw the wall. So they were effectively offering popcorn to a wall, which was really weird. And that's not a very interesting story, it's just a weird story. No, the interesting story starts with the kind of jerkface who, throughout the entire haunted house, he tried to make faces at all the actors. And, like, okay, do what you want at haunted houses so long as you don't hurt people or punch people or injure others, and making faces at people isn't really all that, like, dangerous. But if you are going to make faces at actors in haunted houses, just know you're kind of being an asshole. Not only just because, like, I don't know what you're doing with your time, but haunted houses are expensive. Ours was about $20 to go through, and, like, you can get coupons and stuff like that, but why would you spend $20 to go into a haunted house just to try and scare or make faces or go blah, 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 blah in the faces of everyone who works there? That's not really fun. I don't consider that fun. And if you do consider that fun because you're, you know, trying to scare or break the character of everyone in there who's working very, very hard. And by the way, most haunted houses, mine wasn't, but most haunted houses are volunteer run. So, you know, I mean, we had a lot of volunteers at our place too. So I wasn't a volunteer. I was being paid, but you know, a lot of haunted houses are based in volunteers. Why are you being a jerk? Like, are you trying to get them to break character? Are you trying to scare them? They're trying to put on an entertaining show for people to be scared, and you're going around making faces at them. Like, you're kind of an asshole. You're not, like, the worst guy in the world, but just know you're kind of an asshole. Third story I have is the Brat Kids. Now, I don't know how they were in the rest of the haunt, so this is just how they reacted to me. And I am going to say that this is absolutely not okay. As I stated earlier, you are not allowed to touch the actors in the haunted house. This is a safety issue. We don't want our actors to get hurt. We don't want you guys to get hurt, etc., etc., etc. Haunted houses, primarily, are very linear. This is for multiple reasons, partly because it is a maze built into a very, very small space, and we need to keep you moving forward, and because if you go out of that small space, you're probably going to get lost, and you're not going to know where you are, which is, a bit of an issue. So generally, you don't want to go backwards in a haunted house, especially when one of the areas is very, very clearly one-way only, such as the spike room I was working at. Now, again, the spike room is a place where I am manning a wall that is covered in spikes, and I will push it towards people and slam it in their faces. There is a stopper to prevent it from going all the way to the other wall and squishing them, of course. We don't want to actually hurt anyone. But it is still an area that can be, that can be dangerous. If you are, messing around, someone could get hurt. And a lot of other actors that I've talked to in The Haunt were like, I don't want to ever work spike wall because that feels like it would be super stressful. I had a lot of fun with it because that's one of the places where people get scared the most. Being in an enclosed space that is slowly getting closer to you is absolutely terrifying, and it was hilarious. But there was a group of kids who went through it. They were like teenagers, 13 maybe, and they went through the spike wall just fine. After the spike wall room, there is a skeleton room and then the exit. So they reacted pretty normally. They screamed, they ran, and they left. But this was a busy night, so right after they left, there was another group that was coming into the spike wall, room. And they came in, and I started doing my thing. Unfortunately, just as that happened, I hear someone go, hey, go and scare him. Because I was in costume as well, despite the fact that I wasn't in, despite the fact that I was behind a wall, I was still in costume. I had a robe, I had a cloak, I had, a hood. I was super spooky. And as I am narrowing the wall down on the next poor saps of people who happen to come through the cultist spike wall and be sacrificed, someone gently whaps me on the shoulder. Like, they're trying to tap me, but they don't really have any conscious understanding of how hard they're hitting. Also, because I'm a very small person, so someone's gentle tap could be a whack in the back for me. And I turn, and there's these two brat kids who are standing in the doorway now that they can see the back part of the entrance, because once the wall is closed to the people who are coming in, the entrance is open to everyone in the back. And this brat kid, who's like maybe 4'9", and I'm guesstimating because I'm guessing from how tall he was in comparison to the doorway, with blonde hair, gives me a peace sign with his dumb friend behind him going, "I'm a maverick," and then he runs off. Don't do this. I could have hurt the people who were inside the spike wall. They could have been, like, standing in front of it, and I could have jerked forward and hit them in the face. It's not safe. Don't go backwards through a haunted house and sneak up behind the actors. Not cool. Which leads me to the next story. Because, fun fact, as I said, I could potentially hit someone in the face when I'm working spike wall, because it moves. Unfortunately, I could also potentially get hit in the face while I'm working spike wall. And some people might say, well, Will, there's a wall in between you and the other people. How do you get hit in the face? Very easily. If someone happens to be like this next jerk, who is the biggest asshole of all time. The last story I have is the asshole who stayed. There's not much I can do being behind a wall if someone decides to stay in the spike room. Obviously, a haunted house is linear, as I said, but the door closes behind them, and the only way forward is through the door that I reveal. My goal is to get people scared through the door. Totally fine. Sometimes people get really freaked out because the wall is moving and they don't want to get crushed by the wall. That happens. But on one busy day, there was a bunch of groups that went through, and unfortunately, if you are going through the door that's the exit to the spike room, I can't close the wall because you are between the door and where the wall's supposed to be, and I don't want to crush you, which is fine, but on busy days like Halloween, or like the weekend before Halloween, which is when this happened, there's a lot of groups coming through, and unfortunately there was about 3 groups in a row that I could not close the spike wall, so they didn't get to experience the wall closing. But in the first group, there was a man in a blue shirt, and I remember his face because I had to. I saw his face. I was working spike wall alone that day. That was the first day I was working spike wall alone, or maybe it was the second, but I was working spike wall alone that day. Normally I have someone with me. And he was part of the first group. He experienced the spike wall. He saw it slam. He actually went up to the spike wall to try and push it when he first got into the room. And that happens sometimes. People are like, oh, there must be a way out. I'm going to push on this wall. My general response to that for training is to gently push back until they back up, because then it will give me space to do my thing. So I gently push back, then pull the wall back, and then push it forward again. And then normally people back off, which he did, which is fine. They experienced the spike wall, it slammed in their faces, and retreated back, and most of the group went through. Not Mr. Blue Shirt. No, in fact, he stayed while a second group went through because they were let in while the door was being exited out from. And a third group. 3 groups went through the spike wall room, and he stayed in the back corner. It was weird. So once the third group went through, I waited for him to leave. He and his friend just stayed in the back corner. So I turn off the strobe light that's part of the spike wall room, and I stop the wall. I don't do anything. This is what I am trained to do. When people stay longer than they're supposed to, you become boring, and then they'll move on. This guy does not move on. No. He runs up to the wall, full speed, and kicks it. It is already pulled back as far back as it can go. The door is open. He can leave whenever he wants. But no, he goes up to the wall and kicks it. And there is still a little bit of give to the wall because it's wood and it's rather flexible, and because we don't want like a solid stop and we can't actually pull it back far enough to hold a solid stop. It's not like it's a magnetic or a suction cup or anything. So the wall recoils and hits me in the face. This man is an absolute dickhead. What the fuck? Even if you thought it was an animatronic, this is 1, going to damage our equipment, and 2, if it's not an animatronic, then you are just being a jerk, and you are potentially hurting someone for no good reason. Why would someone do that? Unless they're being an aggressive asshole. So, I do what I'm supposed to do. I step back from the wall, and I immediately exit and find my boss and report the man to my boss. I don't know what happened afterwards, but I managed to point the guy out as he was leaving the actual haunt. So, I'm going to hopefully say that maybe he doesn't come back in the future. But either way, he's just a jerk. So, lesson of the day. Be nice to haunted house workers. They're probably not being paid for their work. Don't be jackasses to them, and please don't punch them in the face. So, that about wraps up my stories. I'm not very good at story time, so I apologize if it was a pretty boring video. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I definitely want to share this with all of you guys. And, yeah, I will link Ren down in the description below, because he is definitely worth checking out. And thank you so much for all your support. If you have any questions, you can contact me on any of my social media, which is down in the description below, or leave a comment, and I will get to it as soon as possible. And if you want to support my work, I do have a Patreon that you can check out if you want to see all of my daily sketch dumps and all that jazz. And, yeah. Regardless, thanks for your support, guys. See you next time. Bye!